Hi guys, welcome back to Lost in My Library. My name is Kate. Today we are continuing our journey of going through the FuhNaff books. So today we are on Fetch, which has the 3 stories, one being the titular title Fetch, and then we have Lonely Freddy, and then we have Out of Stock. This book, I feel like, doesn't have as much lore implications and connections as the last one did, but this one honestly has my favorite story that I kind of mentioned in the last one because it's in the graphic novel volume 1 with the first 2 stories of Into the Pit. But this one just has honestly 3 fairly scary stories. Honestly, look at that. Look at the cover of Fetch. These covers are freaky, I'm not gonna lie. Alright, so let's just jump in. So the first story we have is Fetch. And it is our main character Greg, who at the beginning of our story goes to an old pizzeria with his 2 friends, Cyril and Heidi. And while exploring, they come across Fetch, or what they name Fetch, this little dog animatronic thing. And they are just kind of like, it's old technology, it's probably not going to work, probably hasn't worked in a really long time, probably won't connect to their smartphones like technology now. So they just kind of are like, oh, that's cool, and eventually do leave the pizzeria. Later on, our main character Greg gets a text message from who he eventually assumes is Fetch. And Fetch ends up being I want to say almost like a genie, because he'll do what he wants. He'll do like your deepest, darkest thoughts, and he will take it like literally, and will go way too far with it. So, for example, there was a neighbor dog who would always mess with Greg. Greg didn't particularly like the dog, and one day Greg is riding his bike home and he it doesn't hit the dog. The dog was unalive on the sidewalk where he was riding his bike, and it looks like it had been mauled by some kind of creature. I wonder what it was. And then he was always saying like his uncle has his like a magic touch, a magic finger, and one day his mom gets a phone call and his uncle is in the hospital because his finger got bit off by some kind of creature. And the Fetch ends up giving him the finger that he bit off from his uncle. So while this is going on, he is having a science project with his crush Kimberly, and they are kind of talking about REGs. I forgot what REGs stand for. Random something. And they're talking about shared consciousness, how like psychic, how you can connect to somebody and psychically know what they're thinking, and how like plants there was a study on plants where they could kind of have consciousness, and so there was this whole thing talking about that, and kind of brought up how like Fetch could be reading the thoughts of Greg. And Fetch, Greg is kind of wants Kimberly because he has a massive crush on her. They go, Greg, Cyril, and Haiti all go back to the pizzeria to try and find Fetch, because they haven't seen Fetch. They just have been getting, or Greg's been getting these weird text messages from Fetch. So they're just kind of assuming it's Fetch because it's a wild creature, and I mean, look at him. He's creepy. And so they get there, they see Fetch, and they go off for a little bit. They come back, and Fetch is gone. They're looking all over. Fetch moved. Nobody's touched him. They're just freaked out. So they leave. And Greg goes over to Kimberly's house to warn Kimberly, because he's like, listen, this thing is crazy. I think it might be coming for you next. And Kimberly's parents actually called the police on Greg because it sounds crazy. It sounds wild that a animatronic dog would be coming after their daughter. So Greg goes home eventually after being arrested, and he goes in the bathroom, comes out, and there is a tarp, a bloody tarp, over something in his bedroom. And he gets a text message from Fetch, and it says, I'm gonna read what it says. It's freaky. This story says, "See you." And that's how the story ends. So connections, honestly, this book does this story doesn't have a whole lot of connections to the rest of the rest of the world of Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't think we have an animatronic dog. Well, we have wolves, we have foxes. We don't have a dog. This could, hear me out. Back in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 era, one of the biggest, what would you call it? Easter eggs that was kind of going around was Sparky the dog. So maybe Scott, because that was a big thing when the first game that came out, was that people were saying that they saw a dog in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Came out to be false, because there is no dog in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. We only have Foxy, and that's the closest thing you'll get in the first one. And I think that could be, maybe I just had that thought of coming back to Sparky. Implications, the animatronics that were created could become more and more advanced on their own, or William is doing something to change them. So there's something going on here beyond the spirits haunting the animatronics. This could potentially explain how Freddy in Security Breach may or may not be haunted, but is thinking on his own and doing things outside of his programming. There's some thought. Food for thought. Our next story is Lonely Freddy. Lonely Freddy follows our main character, Alec, who has always been known as the bad kid. He doesn't listen, and he always gets in trouble. His little sister, Hazel, is the perfect child. She's gold child. And it really makes Alec angry. One day, they decide to switch roles. He be good, and she be bad. That doesn't really play a massive role, though, in the story, other than Hazel just being weird and his parents thinking it's really weird that how she's changed. Alex doesn't do a whole lot being good. He doesn't really change throughout the story. It's mainly on Hazel's end. But it shows Hazel just wants Alec to like her because she just wants her big brother to like her. Hazel's birthday comes up and she has it at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And this is where we learn about the Lonely Freddys. This is an animatronic that gets put with the kids who are all by themselves. So they have a friend to talk to and hang out with, which is really depressing, to be honest. I think I'd rather be alone than have a Lonely Freddy, because it just gives fuel to the fire, to be honest. When the party comes, Hazel goes into this wind tunnel thing. If you've seen it, it's like tickets fly all over the place, or whatever. Sometimes it's real money, and then you just grab as much as you can, stuff it in your pockets, whatever. And one ticket in there is for a Yarg Foxy, and that's what all the kids want. Alec wants it himself, and Hazel actually gets the ticket for Yarg Freddy. And she ends up wanting to give this to Alec, but Alec just is so angry that he thinks Hazel just is trying to one-up him, make him look bad, even though she really wants is for Alec to like her. And he takes Yarg Freddy, goes into the back, throws him in the dumpster, and this is where he sees Lone Freddy, so they start having a conversation, and there seems to be a consciousness in Lone Freddy, and the consciousness of whatever's in Lone Freddy and Alec switch, and now Alec is in the body of Lone Freddy, and the consciousness that whatever consciousness was in Lone Freddy is now in Alec's body, and Alec is now stuck in this Lone Freddy, and he sees this Alec impersonator and fake Alec, or person that's in his body, being happy with his family. And that's the last we hear of this story. Connections, there's not a lot of connections, but one thing I do found interesting was that in the character encyclopedia, the heads characters are said to maybe be animatronics. And they do have blue and green eyes, how like the Lonely Freddy and Alec are described in the story. And there's some connection that maybe that they're haunted. The heads that are in Sister Location are haunted. And I know there's been some connections that maybe it's Gregory, but this could also potentially explain a lot of what's happening with the heads in Sister Location. I haven't heard anybody bring that up, that story could eventually connect with those heads, and bring some explanation to that. I don't remember when this came out. I think this came out after Sister Location. When did this come out? Fairly sure this came out after Sister Location. 2020. So yeah, definitely came out after Sister Location. 2020, really? Did he really write 12 books in 2 years? Wow. Wow. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Alec, maybe some poor kid's soul is stuck in those heads. Maybe it's Gregory. I don't know. This could be ooh, just a thought. Going back to patient 47, I think is how they... Okay, hear me out. The patient that is speaking to the therapist in Security Breach, is said to have a consciousness, have a life, but they told the therapist that they had a terrible childhood. When the therapist looks up them and their parents, it seems like they have a good childhood. What if, like in this story, there was a switch? The kid who switched to, who's in patient 47, had a terrible childhood, but the body that they have now and have inhabited, their childhood was actually pretty good. Did I just, wow. Just some food for thought. Implication, this could be showing how Absent could keep coming back. Just moving his consciousness all around. As long as there's an Absent consciousness, he can switch bodies. This goes for any of the characters in the series. To be honest, no one is safe. No one. Absolutely no one. And no one stays dead. Absolutely nobody stays dead in this series. Last story is my favorite of the three, and honestly the favorite that I've read so far, and it is Out of Stock. So in this story, we follow our main character, Oscar, who is looking to buy a plush trap chaser. This thing is creepy. I will include a picture right here of what it looks like in the graphic novel. It's terrifying. With his friends. So they're all going to pitch in, put their money together, and buy this plush trap toy. And it's kind of like how it is in FuhNaff 4, where in FuhNaff 4 there's a mini game where plush trap is sitting on a chair, and you turn off your flashlight, you turn it back on when you think plush trap is getting closer. So same idea. So plush trap moves in the dark. So they search every toy store, but it seems that every single one is bought. And at the last store they go to, they sneak into the back after they said everything's been sold, and find a defected one. Already a defected one, that's weird. And left some money on the counter, ran home with it. And this thing is terrifying. And they eventually feel really bad about taking the toy, because they're good kids. They didn't want to steal it. But so they eventually go back to where the toy store was, and it's no longer a toy store. No longer a toy store. They go in, and there is a worker at the desk, and they're like, "Hey, what happened to the toy store that was here yesterday?" And they're like, "I have no idea. I just started today. I have no idea." Like, there was just a toy store, like, here yesterday. What? That's weird. That's suspicious. So they keep it because, like, they can't return it. So they go back to Oscar's house to hang out. It starts storming and the lights go out. That's when Plush Trap starts attacking them. It's, again, very terrifying. They eventually realize that part of the neighborhood still has lights. So they're going to move to the different neighborhood in hopes of getting somewhere where there is lights, and Plush Trap won't attack them because they're in the light. But then Oscar has this idea of having a train destroy the thing. And the train lights freeze the Plush Trap because, again, it freezes when it's lights. And he is destroyed. Then Oscar goes back home and has a nice moment with his mother. His single mother. It seems too good to be true for a happy ending, so I almost wanted to say, like, they switched consciousnesses or something, but I don't know. We don't have anything to go off of. It just feels too happy of an ending. Connections. I love this version of Plush Trap. It's the best version. He's terrifying, and the graphic novel version of this story is terrifying. Implications really just shows off a terrifying animatronic that we didn't know we needed a new version of, to be honest. There's no real implications to this, I don't think. It's just showing an animatronic that was barely used, or not really animatronic. In the game, it was just a little toy thing that sat on a chair and moved towards you. Could be an animatronic. This time I did write a little bit of a summary for the epilogue of the book. As I said in the last video, each of these stories has an epilogue at the end that will all flow together once you read every single one of the books. So in our last epilogue, our detective was given the case of the Stitch Wraith. In this epilogue, Detective Larson goes to the home of Margie, who has a lot of cats. She had helped a father and son who had lived in the house. He doesn't find anything in the strange until he gets to the second bedroom. That only has a bed and a cabinet. He shows Marjorie a photo. We don't know what the photo was. And she just like blanches. She's like, where'd you get this? He then goes over to the cabinet, opens the cabinet, finds scribblings all over the cabinet, and he's like, okay, tell me what you know. Something weird's going on. So, that's the epilogue. That's it. Short and sweet. I will make a separate video, as I said, over the entirety of the epilogue of these books. That has been the second book. I am surprised this hasn't been too much long after making the first one. These are really short and sweet, and I can write my script up fairly quickly, put my thoughts to paper, and sometimes I just think of things off the cuff. I thank you guys so much for watching. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. Go be a good cabbage today. Do something kind for someone, even if it is for yourself, because self-care is important. And I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.